Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about a real place and how it can be used in a role-playing game. This is just some ideas I've come up with about a location that I just became aware of, and I've lived in New Hampshire for 46 years. And this place is Corbin Park. Now, Corbin Park was a private game reserve put together by Austin Corbin back in 1890. It covers 24,000 acres in the state of New Hampshire, and it is the largest private uh, game park in the United States. It was designed so that there would be hunting of bison, elk, deer, boar year round, as it's a private owned land, so they can pretty much do what they want to on it. And when I say private, I mean really private. There are 30 members. That's it. And how much it costs to buy yourself into this, first of all, you have to buy your entrance from one of the current members. So someone basically has to die and you have to get their slot. And the annual upkeep fees are something between $25,000 and $30,000 a year. So it's not cheap. There are cabins on the property, as well as some of the old farmhouses that were built, that were purchased in the creation of this park, which has, I believe, 2 mountain peaks in it. So it's a pretty significant location, and some of the areas are open for people to come and go to hike, but a lot of it is completely fenced in and completely private. So it got me thinking, what could you do with this? So in the early era of it, it's perfect for a Cthulhu setting. It is absolutely, Call of Cthulhu is just, this is wonderful. Austin Corbin himself could have been a cultist, and he purchased these specific lands, say because they have a nexus of power in them, or he was influenced by a realtor who himself was a cultist to buy these purchase these areas to get them out of public hands and into the private area where they couldn't be seen. And then they were hoping maybe they could corrupt Corbin or his children and make them part of the cult. Now, Corbin's family eventually lost their riches. Was it related to this? Was it tied into this whole cult thing? So you could use this from the late 19th century all the way up to the modern era. This is just a ripe place for Call of Cthulhu. I mean, you're in New England. It's where Lovecraft set a lot of his stories. It's out of the public eye. Who knows what's going on there? Okay, now keeping that theme of the seclusion it affords, you could use this in a supers game from the pulp era, Shadow, Spider, Doc Savage, from things that have no magic to things that have little mysticism, real low power stuff. Like if you were using Mutants in Mastermind, say something in like the power level 5 or under, so fisticuffs and things like that. Or you could use that because it's been around for so long. It could be the golden era, the silver era, the iron age comics. It just is so useful. It is perfect as a location for spies. It could have been, for example, maybe some people who were involved in this were involved with the Nazis during World War II. Or if you want to go further back, maybe they were involved in some of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Germans during World War I. Perchance there were connections to the communists, so you could roll this into a Soviet era, early James Bond kind of thing. This is the perfect location for a James Bond villain. Absolutely perfect. Then, of course, you can use it in a modern era if you wanted to do a police procedural, because you have this isolated location that's out of the public eye. Who knows what's going on? I mean, this is a completely standard police procedural. It could be drug running. It could be a murder that took place. Of course, you could use this as a murder mystery spot in any genre, though I think you'd be best if you did it before the advent of cell phones or after the advent of cell phones, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, since one of the things that's a hot topic in the world of online gaming at the moment is Fallout 4. For good reason. I'm watching a number of Fallout 4 playthroughs. I think a lot of the stuff they've done is excellent. I really enjoy it, even though I think so many things in the setting are absurd. It is a wonderful and rich thing to mine for tabletop role-playing games, or even if you were to like a person who wanted a setting to create their own DLC, Corbin Park is perfect. It's near Boston. You're not that far away, particularly if you're using a vertibird. Um, so there's a distinct location. Now, if you're going to be using it purely as a tabletop environment, Corbin Park could be used at any type of post-apocalyptic setting that you want. The actual end of the world is up to you, but there are some people that really like the nitty-gritty type of apocalypse that's taking place during the event. Ronnie Bradley, for example, he loves that kind of dark moral quandary kind of thing that goes on. What happens when the world goes to hell and the people, us, are now thrown into that environment? No, that's not my thing. I don't like settings where I can project myself into. I find them stressful. They cause me anxiety. So, but this is perfect. Okay. Now, a lot of the people that are going to be members of this club are going to be very powerful, very wealthy. So maybe they have the inside scoop on a world-ending event. Maybe they know something's happening, so they've prepared. They've got a private army. They've built barracks for refugees. They've prepared themselves so when things go to hell in a handbasket, they're ready. They and their families are safely in the park, in the mansion, and in the other buildings that they're on the property. They graciously allow refugees in who suddenly find themselves as slave labor. That the owners of this park have decided they are the new overlords, and these people are now their vassals. So the player characters could be some of these people. Maybe that they don't have enough refugees, and they go outside their park to pull people in because they need manpower to man their new plantation. Okay? Some of the player characters could have been captured in one of these raids. The people in Corbin Park are still going to need all the supplies outside the park. They're going to need farming equipment. They're going to need cars and weapons and entertainment. They're going to be scrounging for books and DVDs and music and games because even though they have lots of resources, they don't have everything. And this will help them keep themselves entertained in a world where they're now very isolated from the outside. Maybe the player characters are seeking a relative of their own. So one of their relatives is in there either voluntarily or they've been kidnapped and they need to get them out. Maybe they've been hired by locals to pull them to get them in, to go in there and get someone out. Or maybe the player characters are just freedom fighters. They've heard of what's going on in there and they want to end it. Jump forward a few years. I mean, a few years, 5 or 10, and the player characters themselves could now have been raised inside this place and now they want out. Okay, their parents know what freedom was, and they've taught their children that it's time for you to leave. Or again, the society that's formed outside the park has told people about this, and again, any of the scenarios I've just told, relatives, hired guns, or freedom fighters could all be applicable. Or if you like things a little further out, like I do, and I prefer like a Gamma World or a Mutant Epoch kind of thing, you jump far into the future, okay, and you have an environment where the automatic defense systems are still in place, but the humans are long gone. So the park is now nothing but the robots that run it and keep it maintained. They make sure the animals don't overpopulate. They make sure that there's food for the people there that aren't there anymore. So they're manning gardens and things like that no one consumes. So they're just feeding this extra food to the animals. But because it's an environment rife with mutations and radiation and mutagens, the animals within the park, and maybe even some of the plants, have mutated and become truly sapient. And as truly sapient beings, they've been raised inside this completely isolated environment. Now, the defense systems keeps them safe, but it also keeps them trapped. They can't get out. They want out. One of them gets out, maybe a bird, one of the first birds that mutates, so it's got a sapience and it escapes and tries to get it, or maybe even a plant that can get out somehow because the system doesn't recognize them as something that can escape. They don't recognize the plants as being something they should care about. Maybe the player characters have just heard about this place because it's an isolated, it's place, no one's ever come out of there, so it's full of all kinds of pre-war technology that's just ripe for the plucking if you're strong enough and tough enough to go and to take it. Maybe the player characters dream of any of the scenarios and themselves becoming the overlords, themselves taking over these mansions and this defense system, and they themselves now controlling the lives of these future mutant animals if you're using that scenario. What language do these mutants speak? The robots have never spoken to them. They're fully sapient. They would have developed the man, or have they found some of the entertainment left over by the humans that were there? So they've heard English or French or something, and they've developed a language based off of that, or is it something completely unique? How will the characters communicate with the beings that live inside this park? So this is a place that I've just recently found out about. A couple of weeks ago, I discovered this. And these are some ideas I came up with over a couple of days at work, just pondering what would I do with this setting in a number of different gaming systems and different genres. Another one you could throw out there is what happens if the apocalypse is magic comes back to the world. So Corbin Parks could be a nexus for that, playing off the whole Cthulhu thing. There's a power nexus here, a gate opens, and beings from a magical world begin to come through. Now, are the beings coming through as invaders, or are they refugees? Was it a one-time event, say an entire zone of some mystical world, or parts of it, numerous parts of this mystical world are dumped into ours, and Corbin Park is one of those parts. They could be all over the world. And the magical beings that end up being here, they're stuck. They can't get back. This is where they are now. And what happens to the world around them? Does the magic become fused with our world, like in Shadowrun? So you've got magic functioning alongside technology, such as the computer you're watching this on. Or does magic interfere with our technology? Is in a magical zone, does electricity not work? Does gunpowder not work? So you have to go in there and use the items, the technology of that zone. And is there an area where the zone of Corbin Park and just outside it where things mix? Some magic works and some technology works, and you get further away, magic gets weaker and technology gets stronger. So you could use a varying degree if you don't want to do the whole full Shadowrun thing where magic and technology is completely compatible in the world, or at least exists in the entire world. And the beings that come through or been dumped here, or again, they're invaders or refugees, it's completely up to you. You could do a Seelie Unseelie court thing. You could do other kinds of fantasy creatures that are non-traditional, so you're not using the elves and the dwarves and the orcs. You're coming up with something different, something of your own creation, something you're using. Say you use the Pathfinder racial book to create something completely out of the ordinary. And are there humans who are capable of using magic and they didn't know it until this gate or this event happens, so now they suddenly have the ability to use it? And again, does it work closer to a zone, or does it just get more powerful closer to a zone? So it could work anywhere, but it's very weak if you're in a dead zone far away from these nexus points. And again, I'm using Corbin Park because I think it's a really wonderful location. Again, it's in my state of New Hampshire. I didn't know it existed, and it's has so many wonderful connections that could be used for Lovecraft and supers and post-apocalyptic settings. And again, it's perfect for a Fallout 4 game if you're doing a tabletop version because it's so close to Boston. So what if the people in there didn't die out and the humans have now been isolated for all this time? What happens? You're looking like a Cabot House kind of thing, where from the city of Boston, and this is like an offshoot of that. So again, so many ideas that can be used with this. I'm going to put a link in this video about Corbin Park. It's going to also have some links within it that'll lead you to more information. Hope you'll mind. Pardon me, I'm being distracted by two different cats at the moment. Tell me, what would you do with Corbin Park? What genre would you want to play it in? What system would you want to use? Are you interested in it as a resource for Cthulhu, for some type of supers game, or a James Bond spy thing? Or do you like the idea of its use in a current era police procedural, or even as a post-apocalyptic future setting? So tell me, and tell everybody else, what would you do with Corbin Park?